Life in the Middle Ages was, in many ways, a fascinating puzzle. While we complain about a bad internet connection or our morning coffee being too cold, medieval people had more, let's say, primitive concerns. Among them, their sleeping habits were so peculiar that they might make us think they lived in a parallel universe. But no, they simply slept in a way that would seem absurd to us. Yet for them, it was as normal as checking your phone before bed is for us. Let's dive into the strange sleeping habits of medieval people, with a bit of context on how they lived. Along the way, we'll explore additional oddities that made their nights documentary-worthy. Get ready for a journey to the past, where beds were a luxury, dreams had divine meanings, and insomnia was fought with methods that would make us laugh today. Let's start with how they slept. The concept of sleep wasn't just, turn off the light and see you in the morning. Not at all. People back then practiced something historians call biphasic sleep, dividing their night into 2 sleep segments with a wakeful period in between. Imagine this. You go to bed around 9 or 10 p.m., sleep for 3 or 4 hours, wake up, and then what? There was no Netflix or TikTok to kill time, so people got creative. This period, known as the watch, could last an hour or 2, and what you did depended on who you were. Peasants might check the livestock, make sure wolves weren't prowling, or stoke the fire. Monks used this time to pray or meditate in their dark cells. Nobles might talk with their partners, read by candlelight, if they were rich enough for candles, or even, according to some records, engage in more intimate activities. Yes, the Middle Ages were not as Puritan as we've been led to believe. This wasn't a passing trend, it was deeply rooted in daily life. Texts of the time, from chronicles to personal diaries, mention this practice as totally normal. A monk in the 11th century might casually write that he got up at midnight to pray before going back to bed, just like brushing one's teeth today. Even medieval doctors recommended it, arguing it was healthier for body and soul. They didn't know about circadian rhythms, but they seemed to be onto something, because biphasic sleep worked for them for centuries. Now, where did they sleep? That's where it gets interesting. If you think of a medieval bed as a memory foam mattress with Egyptian cotton sheets, you're way off. Most people didn't have beds like we know today. Peasants slept on mattresses stuffed with straw, hay, or if lucky, feathers, placed on the floor or on a simple wooden frame. Straw wasn't exactly clean. It collected bugs, dust, and who knows what else. Swapping it out was a regular chore, though not always done frequently. Imagine sleeping in hay with a couple of fleas as roommates. Not ideal. Nobles had more elaborate beds, but don't get too excited. These were solid wood structures, often raised off the ground to avoid dampness and bugs. The mattresses, still straw or feathers, were sometimes covered in fine fabrics like linen or silk in wealthier homes. Rich folks' beds also had curtains, not for decoration, but for warmth and a bit of privacy, since rooms weren't always private spaces. In a castle, multiple family members, servants, and even guests might sleep in the same room. And speaking of chaos, sleeping wasn't exactly peaceful. In a peasant household, the whole family often shared one room, sometimes even with animals. Yes, chickens and goats could be your roommates. The noise from animals, the fire crackling, wind through the cracks, and your cousin snoring didn't make for a peaceful night. In monasteries, silence was more common, but monks had to deal with bells ringing in the night for prayers. In castles, you'd hear guards coughing, dogs barking, or a troubadour who didn't know when to stop playing the lute. Dreams in the Middle Ages were not just random brain activity. They were seen as divine messages or prophecies. People took them very seriously. Manuals like dream books interpreted dream meanings. For example, dreaming of a wolf might mean an enemy was near. Dreaming of clean water signaled good health. Monks and clergy often recorded their dreams looking for signs from God. These dreams could influence important decisions, like a noble canceling a battle because he dreamed of a crow. Sounds crazy, but it was part of their worldview.